from the Refugee and Asylum Rights Director of Amnesty International UK, Steve Valdez-Symonds. Hi, Steve. A few things that occur to us there as we're looking at these figures. I mean, we're literally getting these hot off the press, so we're writing them down. 44% increase in the backlog of cases for people who haven't been processed in a year. Some of them waiting more than 6 months, some of them waiting more than a year. Why? Why is that taking so long? Is it because of people like you making the system more complicated and slowing down?
The single biggest reason, I've said this many times, over the last few years why the asylum backlog keeps going up is because ministers have instituted a policy of attempting simply not to determine people's claims. They have only this year gone to the extent of passing law that will into the future require them not to determine people's claims. And if you keep doing this, your backlog will get bigger. We have got to the extraordinary position where the French asylum system that has been and still receives many more people into it than does this country has a smaller backlog than this country has. Why? Because for tens of thousands of people, they are trapped in a system that refuses to process their claims.
But it's not in the political interest, is it, Steve, for this British government, which said it would be tough on immigration, said many years ago it would get immigration down to tens of thousands, for them not to get to grips with this backlog and to get people either settled here or booted out if they're bogus claims?
It's not in anyone's interest unless you are in the business of making money out of the ever-growing business of accommodating people or receiving money from the Home Office around border security, or perhaps you're in the business of exploiting the people who are left in limbo. No, I agree with you that it's not in the political interest of anyone at all. It's certainly not in the taxpayers' interest. No. And it's not in the interest of the people's caught in the system. But Amnesty warned government about this years ago, and we've kept warning them, and they have ignored this. And as we predicted, the backlog has continued year on year to grow.
They could deal with one aspect of the backlog, Steve, by saying to people who are coming here from India, out. There's no conflict in India. There's no civil unrest in India. It's a relatively prosperous country which has just put a device on the south side of the moon for the first time. I'm intrigued why we are letting any of them in at all.
Well, you mentioned two countries, I think, earlier, both India and Turkey, where you raised your eyebrows at that. It may not persuade you, I don't know, but my organisation, a leading human rights organisation across the world, has been particularly targeted in both of those countries, including members of staff being prosecuted as if terrorists and detained indefinitely for very long periods of time by the governments in Turkey in particular, the Amnesty Office largely having been shut down at times in India. It shows you that there are profound human rights concerns and growing ones in both those countries.
Just explain that to us in a little bit more detail, Steve. So if you are an Indian man and you want to come and live here, and life is so desperate in India that you are forced to go onto these boats, what might you be in danger of from the Indian government? Under what sort of circumstances? Because that's nearly 1,000 Indian people, presumably a majority of them men. What is it that they are doing in India that is considered to be illegal or inappropriate by the government?
Well, one of the big things going on in India at the moment has been a massive crackdown on any political opposition, particularly on anti-Muslim grounds. India has a government that is a very heavy nationalistic Hindu government that makes a lot of play out of disturbing race relations and religious relations in its own country. And so if you are persecuted in that country by those reasons, yes, you may have reason to flee. I am not here to say that every person crossing the channel of any nationality is necessarily a refugee, but if you want to know whether any of the Indian people who do so are refugees, you will have to determine their claims. And there are certainly good reasons for some people in India to need to flee.
And Turkey, we think of Turkey as being a lovely country. Many people will have been there for their summer holidays this year. 867 people from Turkey, up 45%. What kind of situation might individuals find themselves in Turkey, which mean they want to come and live here?
Well, again, you have a massive political crackdown in that country by the president. That has been going on for several years now, in some ways encouraged, I'm sad to say, by the European Union when the UK was a member, doing a not very clever deal with that country, all over trying to protect European countries from receiving particularly Syrian refugees. And that has licensed a huge increase in political repression in Turkey, to the point at which Amnesty International senior members of staff have been incarcerated in Turkey over recent years for long periods of time on trumped up charges. So Amnesty knows full well about the persecution that continues to happen and many people suffer from in that country.
I just want to ask one quick question. TikTok video this week, young guy making it look like the holiday of a lifetime coming over here. I don't know whether you saw the video. We've got a picture of it here. How does this help the situation? We want people to stop taking that journey over the channel, and this makes it look like an appealing option. What are your responses to this, Steve?
Well, I can understand why it causes people some anxiety and such like, but I'm sure it has absolutely no impact on the reason why people in northern France who either have strong connections in this country, including family, or cannot get into an asylum system that receives so many more people than does this country, and receive brutal treatment in northern France, will continue to attempt to make journeys to seek a place of safety here.
That doesn't look like a place of safety. It looks like a place of luxury. That's the problem, isn't it?
Well, I wouldn't want to be stuck, frankly, in a hotel room indefinitely in this country. No, perhaps I wouldn't take to TikTok, not that I know much about that, to be perfectly honest, to portray videos of myself, but it looks a pretty boring and depressing lifestyle, to be honest. And yes, maybe at the moment in time that he chose to make his video, he showed some happiness and whatever. Well, good luck to him. His asylum claim, if he's made one, it deserves to be treated with respect. And if he's entitled to asylum, he ought to be granted it and be able to get on with his life here. If not, then yes, steps can be taken to return him where he has come from.
OK, thank you, Steve. Thanks. Good to talk to you. Steve Valdez-Symonds there from Amnesty International.